A waitress heard the threat from across the diner, her boyfriend promising she was dead when they got home. She froze, trapped, terrified. What she didn't know, the quiet stranger in the corner booth wasn't human, hadn't been for 300 years, and kings, even vampire kings, don't tolerate threats to the innocent. The coffee was cold. Emily didn't care. She'd stopped tasting anything 3 months ago, around the time Mark started checking her phone every night before bed. The diner smelled like burnt grease and old cigarettes, the kind of place that existed only because truckers needed somewhere to stop between nowhere and nothing. A neon sign outside blinked red through the window, open 24 hours. Inside, a waitress with tired eyes wiped down the counter for what looked like the 100th time that shift. Emily and Mark sat across from each other in a cracked vinyl booth, the silence between them heavy and familiar. They'd been driving for 6 hours. Mark said they were visiting his mother. Emily knew better. They were running. Mark always ran when things got complicated. "I'm tired," Emily said quietly, staring at her reflection in the window. She barely recognized herself anymore. When had she gotten so thin? When had the light gone out of her eyes? "We'll be there in 2 hours," Mark said without looking up from his phone. He was texting someone. He was always texting someone. Emily took a breath. She'd been practicing this sentence in her head for weeks. "I mean, I'm tired of this. Of us. I want to leave." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mark's thumb stopped moving across the screen. He set the phone down slowly, deliberately, the way someone might place a loaded gun on a table. His jaw tightened. Emily watched a vein pulse in his temple. "What did you just say?" "I want to leave. I can't do this anymore." Mark's hand shot across the table and slammed down so hard the coffee cups jumped. The waitress looked over, then quickly looked away. Everyone always looked away. Mark leaned forward, his voice low and venomous, but loud enough that anyone paying attention could hear every word. "You're dead when we get home. You hear me? Dead. Try walking out on me and see what happens." Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. Her hands shook. This was a mistake. Why did she say anything? She should have waited. She should have. A voice cut through the diner, calm and impossibly cold. "Let her go." Both of them turned. In the corner booth sat a man Emily hadn't noticed before. She would have noticed him, should have noticed him, because he didn't belong in a place like this. He wore an expensive black coat, perfectly tailored, and his silver-gray eyes reflected the fluorescent lights in a way that made Emily think of wolves watching from the darkness. He was looking directly at Mark. "This doesn't concern you," Mark spat, his face flushing red. "Mind your own business." The stranger stood. He moved with an unsettling grace, like water flowing uphill. When he stepped into the light, Emily saw he was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair and pale skin that suggested he rarely saw the sun. "I am making it my concern," the man said. His voice carried no threat, no anger. It was simply a statement of fact, as though he'd announced the weather. Mark laughed, but it sounded forced. "You want to be a hero? You picked the wrong night, buddy." "Let her go," the stranger repeated. "Walk away." "Or what?" The lights flickered. Just for a second, but Emily saw something in that flicker. The way shadows stretched too long across the floor, the way the stranger's eyes caught the light like an animal's. Mark stood up fast, his chair scraping against the linoleum. He was bigger than the stranger, broader in the shoulders, and he'd been in enough bar fights to know how to throw his weight around. "You know what? I'm getting real tired of people telling me what to do." He grabbed Emily's wrist and yanked her out of the booth. She stumbled, pain shooting up her arm where his fingers dug into her skin. "We're leaving," Mark announced to the diner, to the waitress, to the stranger who stood impossibly still in the middle of the floor. "And if you follow us, I'm calling the cops." Harassment. Emily wanted to say something, wanted to scream, but her throat closed up the way it always did. Mark was already dragging her toward the door. The stranger didn't follow. He simply watched them go, those silver eyes tracking their movement like a predator calculating distance. But as Mark shoved open the glass door, Emily heard the stranger's voice one more time, quiet enough that maybe only she could hear it. "I will not let him hurt you." The parking lot was dark. The single overhead light had burned out weeks ago, leaving only the red glow from the diner's neon sign. Mark's car sat in the far corner, away from the few other vehicles scattered across the cracked asphalt. Mark still had her wrist. His grip was turning her fingers numb. "You embarrassed me in there," he hissed. "You made me look weak in front of that asshole." "Mark, please." "Shut up. Just shut up." He shoved her toward the car, and Emily's knee hit the bumper. She gasped in pain. The door to the diner opened behind them. The stranger stepped out into the darkness. Mark spun around, his face twisted with rage. "I told you not to follow us." "I cannot do that," the stranger said simply. He walked toward them with that same unsettling grace, his footsteps making no sound on the pavement. Emily noticed something else now. The air around him seemed colder, as though winter followed wherever he went. Mark let go of Emily and squared up, fists clenched. "You want to get hurt? Because I will put you in the hospital." The stranger stopped 10 feet away. He tilted his head slightly, studying Mark the way a scientist might study an insect. "No," he said quietly. "You will not." Mark charged. And that's when the night truly began. Mark swung hard, a wild right hook aimed at the stranger's jaw. He'd knocked out bigger men with that punch. He'd broken noses, cracked ribs, sent tough guys stumbling. His fist connected with nothing but air. The stranger hadn't moved, hadn't dodged or stepped back. He simply wasn't where Mark's fist was. One moment, he stood directly in front of Mark. The next, he was 3 feet to the left, as though space itself had shifted around him. Mark stumbled forward from his own momentum, confusion flashing across his face. "What the?" He swung again. Again, his fist met empty air. The stranger now stood behind him. Emily pressed herself against the car, her heart racing. This wasn't possible. Nobody moved like that. Nobody. "Stay still." Mark roared, spinning around. His face was purple with rage and humiliation. He charged forward, both arms reaching to tackle the stranger to the ground. For a split second, Emily thought he might succeed. Then the stranger raised one hand, barely more than a gesture, and Mark stopped cold. His feet skidded on the pavement. His eyes went wide. The overhead neon sign flickered. The red light died, plunging the parking lot into deeper darkness. Emily felt the temperature drop 10 degrees in a single breath. Shadows stretched across the asphalt, growing longer and darker than the dim light should have allowed. They moved like living things, writhing and reaching. "What are you?" Mark whispered, his voice suddenly small. The stranger didn't answer. A car door slammed across the parking lot. "Mark, you good, bro?" 2 men stumbled out of a beat-up pickup truck near the diner entrance. Emily recognized them, Mark's friends from the bar where he spent most nights. Tyler and Jake. Both of them were drunk, walking with the exaggerated care of people trying to hide how wasted they were. "This guy bothering you?" Tyler called out, pulling a tire iron from his truck bed. Mark's confidence returned instantly, fed by backup and alcohol. "Yeah. This freak won't leave us alone." The stranger sighed, a sound of infinite patience tested by infinite foolishness. "Leave now," he said to the 2 men. "While you still can." Jake laughed, a harsh sound in the darkness. 3 on 1, pretty boy. You picked the wrong people to mess with." They advanced together, Mark from the front, Tyler and Jake from the sides, trying to surround him. The stranger stood perfectly still, his silver eyes tracking all 3 without apparent concern. Emily wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything but stand frozen against the car. But her legs wouldn't move. Mark lunged first. The stranger caught his wrist mid-swing and squeezed. Mark's face went white. He dropped to his knees with a strangled gasp, and the stranger released him almost gently, letting him collapse onto the pavement. Tyler swung the tire iron in a wide arc. It should have cracked the stranger's skull. Instead, the stranger's hand shot out, impossibly fast, and caught the metal rod mid-swing. The impact made no sound. Tyler yanked backward with all his strength, but the tire iron didn't budge, as though it had been welded to the stranger's palm. The stranger pulled gently, and Tyler flew forward, stumbling and crashing face first into the pavement beside Mark. Jake ran. He made it 3 steps before his legs simply gave out, folding beneath him like someone had cut his strings. He fell in a heap, unconscious before he hit the ground. The stranger hadn't touched him. Emily's breath came in short, panicked gasps. The shadows in the parking lot still moved wrong, flowing against the light, reaching toward the 3 men on the ground like dark water. The stranger stood in the center of it all, completely calm, as though subduing 3 grown men had required no more effort than swatting flies. Mark groaned, trying to push himself up. His face was scraped and bleeding.
You
can't. Stay down, the stranger said quietly. All of you. And they did. Mark collapsed back onto the asphalt. Tyler whimpered, but didn't move. Jake remained unconscious. It was as though the stranger's words carried physical weight, pressing them into the ground. The stranger turned to Emily. His silver eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But she couldn't move. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Emily shook her head, not trusting her voice. He will come after you, the stranger said, glancing down at Mark's prone form. Men like him always do. They do not accept loss. They do not respect boundaries. I know, Emily managed to whisper. Her voice sounded broken. He always does. He always finds me. She'd tried leaving twice before. The first time, Mark found her at her sister's house within 6 hours. The second time, she made it 3 days before he showed up at the motel where she was hiding. Both times, he'd promised it would be worse if she tried again. The stranger studied her for a long moment, and Emily felt as though those silver eyes could see straight through her, past her fear, past her exhaustion, into the hollow space where hope used to live. Then you should not go home, he said simply. I don't have anywhere else to go. You do now. The stranger walked past her to Mark's car and opened the passenger door. Get in. I will take you somewhere safe. Emily looked at the 3 men on the ground, then at this impossible stranger who moved like smoke and shadow. Who are you? The stranger smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Someone who heard you ask for help. I didn't. Yes, he said quietly. You did. And somehow, Emily knew he was right. Emily didn't get in Mark's car. The thought of sitting in those seats, breathing that air, made her stomach turn. I can't, she whispered. Not his car. The stranger nodded once, as though he'd expected this. Mine is parked behind the diner. His vehicle turned out to be a black sedan, expensive and anonymous. The interior smelled like leather and something else, something cold and ancient that Emily couldn't name. She climbed into the passenger seat, her hands still shaking. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Emily looked back. Mark was sitting up now, holding his head. Even from a distance, she could see the rage on his face. He'll call someone, she said. The police. His uncle works for the county sheriff's department. The stranger's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His uncle. Mark gets away with everything. He always has. Emily's voice cracked. I tried reporting him once. Filed a restraining order. His uncle made the paperwork disappear. Told me I was wasting everyone's time with relationship drama. The stranger said nothing, but his hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before pulling into a 24-hour gas station, its harsh fluorescent lights a beacon in the darkness. The stranger parked near the entrance. You need water, he said. And food. When did you last eat? Emily couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before.
Come.
Inside, the gas station was too bright, too normal. A teenager with headphones stood behind the counter, barely glancing up from his phone. The stranger guided Emily to the refrigerated section and handed her a bottle of water and a sandwich. I don't have money, Emily said. Mark always kept my wallet. I have money. At the counter, the teenager finally looked up and froze. His eyes went wide, fixed on the stranger's face. The color drained from his cheeks. Keep the change, the stranger said, placing two $20 bills on the counter for a $7 purchase. The teenager nodded mutely, unable to look away. Outside, Emily sat on the curb and forced herself to drink. The water was cold and real, and she suddenly realized how thirsty she'd been. The stranger stood a few feet away, scanning the road like a sentinel. "What's your name?" Emily asked. He hesitated. "Vorian." "That's unusual." "Yes."
I'm Emily.
"I know." At her startled look, he added, "You told a police officer who took your restraining order. I heard you mention it in the diner." Emily hadn't mentioned it. She was certain. But she was too exhausted to argue. Her phone buzzed. Then again. And again. 12 texts from Mark, each one angrier than the last. Then calls. Emily stared at the screen, her stomach knotting. "Where are you?" "You stupid bitch, answer me." "I'm calling the cops." "That psycho kidnapped you, I'm reporting it." "He's saying you kidnapped me," Emily whispered. Vorian's expression didn't change. "Did I?"
No.
"But his uncle will believe him. They'll come looking." "Then we need to move." Across the street stood a rundown motel, the kind that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. The neon sign read vacancy in flickering blue letters. Vorian walked into the office and returned 5 minutes later with a key. "Room 12. Ground floor, around back. You will be safe there tonight." Emily took the key, her fingers brushing his. His skin was ice cold. "What about you?" "I will keep watch." "From where?" Vorian gestured to the walkway outside the room. "There. You're going to stand outside all night." "Yes." Emily wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was crazy, but the truth was she felt safer than she had in 3 years. This stranger, this impossible man who moved like a ghost and spoke like he was reading from an ancient script, had done more to protect her in 2 hours than anyone had in her entire relationship with Mark. Room 12 smelled like mildew and cheap air freshener, but the door had a deadbolt and a chain. Emily locked both, then sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the water bottle. Through the thin curtain, she could see Vorian's silhouette outside the door. He stood perfectly still, his back to her room, facing the parking lot. Emily lay down without taking off her shoes. Sleep seemed impossible. Her mind raced with questions. What was Vorian? How had he moved like that? Why was he helping her? But exhaustion won. She woke to red and blue lights flashing through the curtain. Her phone showed 5:30 a.m. Outside, she heard voices, official, authoritative. Reports of a kidnapping. White female, 5'6", brown hair. Witness says she left with a male suspect in a black sedan. Emily's blood ran cold. She scrambled to the window and peeked through the curtain. 2 police cruisers sat in the motel parking lot. 4 officers. And standing calmly in the center of them all, bathed in the red and blue lights, was Vorian. One officer had his hand on his weapon. "Sir, we need you to tell us where Emily Hartwell is. Right now." Vorian's voice carried clearly through the morning air, calm and unbothered. "She is safe. That is all you need to know." "That's not how this works. Step away from the door and put your hands where we can see them." Emily's hands shook as she unlocked the deadbolt. If she stayed silent, they'd arrest Vorian. If she came out, Mark would know exactly where she was. She opened the door. "I'm here," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "And I left willingly." 4 sets of eyes turned toward Emily. She stood in the doorway of room 12, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, her hair tangled and her face pale in the early morning light. The lead officer, a barrel-chested man with gray at his temples, lowered his hand from his weapon. His nameplate read Davies. "Ma'am, are you Emily Hartwell?" "Yes." "Are you hurt? Has this man harmed you in any way?" Emily stepped forward, forcing her legs to stop shaking.
No.
"He helped me. My boyfriend was threatening me at the diner last night. This man, Vorian, he got me away safely." Officer Davies exchanged a glance with his partner, a younger woman with sharp eyes. Something unspoken passed between them. Your boyfriend called in a kidnapping report, Davies said carefully. Mark Reeves says you were taken against your will by a stranger. Mark is lying. He says this man assaulted him and 2 others in the parking lot. Emily's jaw tightened. Mark tried to hurt him first. He was dragging me to the car. Vorian stopped him. The female officer stepped forward. Her nameplate read Chin. Miss Hartwell, are you saying you left Mark Reeves of your own free will? Yes. And you're here voluntarily? Yes.
Chin pulled out a small notebook.
Were you physically harmed by Mr. Reeves last night? Emily held up her wrist. Purple bruises in the shape of fingers circled her skin where Mark had grabbed her. She pushed up her sleeve further, revealing older bruises in various stages of healing: yellow, green, fading brown. He's been hurting me for 2 years, Emily said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to break through. I tried to report it 8 months ago. Filed a restraining order with Officer Reeves, Mark's uncle. The paperwork disappeared. Davies and Chin looked at each other again. This time, Emily saw something else in their expressions. They knew. They'd always known. Miss Hartwell, Davies said slowly, that's a serious allegation. It's the truth. A third officer, younger and clearly uncomfortable, shifted his weight. Mark Reeves says he's the victim here. He's got witnesses. Tyler Brennan and Jake Morris both confirmed. Tyler and Jake were drunk, Emily interrupted. They attacked Vorian with a tire iron. Check the security cameras at the diner if you don't believe me. Davies rubbed his face. He looked tired, like a man who'd seen this same story play out too many times. Miss Hartwell, I need to be straight with you. Mark Reeves comes from a connected family. His uncle is. I know who his uncle is, Emily said quietly. That's why I never went home last night. That's why I'm scared to go anywhere. Chin closed her notebook. We can't force you to go back to him. You're an adult. You left voluntarily. But she hesitated. You should know that Mark has already filed a police report. He's claiming harassment, assault, and attempted kidnapping. He wants to press charges. Vorian spoke for the first time since Emily emerged. His voice was cold enough to frost glass. Let him try. Davies turned to him. Sir, you should probably get a lawyer. Mark's claims might not stick, but with his family connections. I am not concerned with his family connections. The way Vorian said it made Emily shiver. It wasn't a boast or a threat. It was simply a fact, delivered with the absolute certainty of someone who had never feared consequences. Davies studied Vorian carefully, and Emily saw something flicker across the officer's face. Recognition?
Fear?
She couldn't tell. You look familiar, Davies said. Have we met?
No.
You sure? Because I swear I've seen you before. You have not. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Chun broke it. Miss Hartwell, do you have somewhere safe to stay? Family? Friends? Emily shook her head. Mark had slowly cut her off from everyone. Her sister stopped answering calls after Mark showed up at her house screaming. Her best friend moved away after Mark slashed her tires. She will be safe with me, Vorian said. Davies frowned. With all due respect, sir, that might not look good if this goes to court. You're a stranger to her. Mark's lawyer could argue. I do not care what Mark's lawyer argues. You should care. The Reeves family doesn't play fair. Vorian smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Neither do I. The officers exchanged one more look. Emily saw the silent conversation happening between them, the weight of duty versus the weight of truth, the law versus justice. Finally, Davies sighed. Miss Hartwell, you're free to go. We'll file a report stating you left voluntarily. But I'm telling you right now, Mark will come for you. Men like him always do. And his uncle, he trailed off, leaving the warning unfinished. I understand. Do you? Davies looked at her hard. Because I've seen this before. I've seen women disappear. I've seen cases go cold. I've seen the Reeves family make problems go away. I won't disappear, Emily said, lifting her chin. Not anymore. Davies nodded slowly. He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. That's my direct line. If you need anything, you call me. Not 911. Me. Emily took the card, surprised. Chun handed her one too. We can't do much, Chun said quietly. But we'll do what we can. The officers returned to their vehicles. As they pulled away, Emily saw Davies watching them in his rearview mirror, his expression grim. Vorian hadn't moved. He stood in the parking lot, still as a statue, his silver eyes tracking something Emily couldn't see. What is it? She asked. We are being watched, Vorian said quietly. But not by police. Then who? Someone who knows what I am. They've been driving for nearly 18 hours with only brief stops for gas and food. Vorian never seemed tired. He never ate. He barely blinked. Emily had dozed in and out of consciousness, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. When she woke, the landscape had transformed from flat highway to winding mountain roads, dense forest pressing in from both sides. Where are we going? She asked, her voice hoarse. Somewhere Mark cannot follow. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Vorian seemed to relax as darkness approached, his rigid posture softening slightly. You haven't slept, Emily observed. I do not need to. Everyone needs sleep. Vorian glanced at her, those silver eyes catching the dying light. Not everyone. Before Emily could respond, Vorian's head snapped to the left. He yanked the steering wheel hard, swerving the car onto the shoulder. The vehicle skidded to a stop inches from a steep embankment. Get down, Vorian shouted. Emily barely had time to process the command before something hit the hood with a metallic thunk. She looked up and saw a crossbow bolt embedded in the metal, silver tip gleaming. What? Stay in the car. Lock the doors. Do not come out no matter what you see. Vorian was already moving, his door flying open. Emily caught a glimpse of him rolling across the pavement with impossible speed before disappearing into the tree line. Her heart hammered. She fumbled with the lock button, her hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries. Through the windshield, she could see nothing but darkening forest and the silver bolt still quivering in the hood. A figure emerged from the trees on the opposite side of the road. He was tall and lean, dressed in dark tactical gear with a crossbow in his hands. His face was scarred, weathered by years of outdoor living. He moved with the careful precision of a predator, scanning the forest where Vorian had vanished. Come out, Your Majesty, the man called, his voice rough and mocking. Or, do you hide behind humans now? Your Majesty. Emily's breath caught. What did that mean? Movement exploded from the trees, but not from where Vorian had entered. He appeared behind the hunter, silent as death itself. The hunter spun impossibly fast, raising his crossbow. Vorian was faster. He moved in a blur, covering 20 feet in less than a second. Emily's eyes couldn't track it. One moment he was by the trees, the next his hand was wrapped around the crossbow, crushing it like cardboard. The hunter dropped the weapon and drew a silver knife from his belt, slashing in a wide arc. Vorian leaned back, and the blade passed inches from his throat. In the fading light, Emily saw something that made her blood freeze. Vorian's eyes were glowing. Actually glowing, silver light emanating from them like twin moons. The hunter lunged again. Vorian caught his wrist and twisted. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the forest. The hunter screamed, but didn't drop the knife. With his other hand, he pulled a vial from his vest and threw it at Vorian's feet. Glass shattered. Liquid splashed across Vorian's legs. Vorian hissed, and stumbled backward. Smoke rose from his clothes where the liquid had touched. Holy water, Emily realized with mounting horror. The hunter threw holy water at him. You've gone soft, the hunter spat, cradling his broken wrist. The Vampire King, protecting a human? Pathetic. Vampire. The word hit Emily like a physical blow. The hunter continued, backing toward the tree line. How many of my brothers did you kill? How many families did you destroy? And now you play hero for some worthless girl? Vorian's voice dropped to something barely human, something ancient and terrible. She is not worthless. He moved again, too fast for Emily to see. The hunter tried to run, but Vorian was already there, one hand gripping the man's throat, lifting him off the ground. "You will leave," Vorian said quietly. "You will tell your brotherhood that I am done with their war. You will tell them that anyone who comes for me will not return. They'll never stop," the hunter choked out. "You know that. They'll send. Then they will die." Vorian threw the hunter into the forest. Emily heard branches breaking, a body crashing through undergrowth, then silence. Vorian stood in the middle of the road, his chest heaving despite not needing breath, his eyes still glowing in the twilight. Burns marked his legs where the holy water had touched him. Slowly, terribly slowly, he turned to face the car. To face Emily. She should have been screaming. Should have been running. Should have been anything except frozen in the passenger seat, staring at a vampire king, through the windshield. Vorian approached the car. Each step was careful, measured, as though he was approaching a wild animal he didn't want to startle. He stopped a few feet from the door. "Emily," he said, his voice back to normal, the glow fading from his eyes. "I am sorry you had to see that." Emily's hands trembled on the door lock. "Press it.
Run.
Get away from the monster." But he wasn't a monster. Not to her. He'd saved her. Protected her. Stood guard outside her motel room all night. She unlocked the door. Vorian's expression shifted. Surprise, then something that might have been relief. "You are not afraid," he said. "I'm terrified," Emily admitted, stepping out of the car. "But not of you." Vorian studied her for a long moment. "You should be." "Maybe. But Mark hurt me for 2 years, and he was human." Emily's voice steadied. "You've done nothing but keep me safe. So whatever you are, whatever that man called you, I don't care. You should care. Being near me puts you in danger." "I was already in danger." Vorian said nothing, but something passed across his face. Something Emily couldn't name. "We need to keep moving," he finally said. "There will be more." The lodge appeared through the trees like a ghost from another century. 3 stories of dark wood and stone, windows shuttered, surrounded by forest so thick the afternoon sun barely penetrated. It looked abandoned, forgotten by time. Vorian pulled the car into an overgrown driveway and cut the engine. "We will be safe here," he said. Emily stared at the building. "It looks condemned." "It is meant to." Inside, the lodge was surprisingly intact. Dust covered everything, but the furniture remained. Heavy wooden chairs, a massive stone fireplace, oil paintings of mountain landscapes darkened with age. It smelled like old wood and secrets. Vorian moved through the space with familiarity, opening shutters to let in pale light. "This place belonged to my court once. Before the wars. Before most of my kind went into hiding or died." "Your court," Emily repeated. "That hunter called you a king." Vorian paused, his back to her. "Yes. So you're the vampire king. Or I was." He turned to face her. "Now I am just Vorian. The last of something that should have ended centuries ago." Emily sat heavily on a dust-covered couch. The past 48 hours crashed over her. The diner, the parking lot, the police, the hunter. Her entire reality had shattered and reformed into something impossible. "Why me?" The question came out as a whisper. "You don't even know me. Why risk everything for a stranger?" Vorian moved to the fireplace, running his fingers along the stone mantel. For a long moment he didn't speak. "I hear things others cannot," he finally said.
Heartbeats.
Blood moving through veins.
Fear. Rage.
Desperation. He looked at her. "In that diner, I heard more than just your fear of Mark. I heard a soul being suffocated. A life begging silently to be saved. I have lived for 300 years, Emily. I have heard countless hearts beat, but yours," he trailed off. "Yours was dying while you still breathed." Emily's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I didn't think anyone noticed." "I noticed." She wiped her face roughly. "Mark will never stop looking for me. You know that, right? Even if we hide here forever, eventually." "You cannot hide forever," Vorian agreed. "But you can fight back." Fight? Against Mark? He has his uncle, his friends, connections. I have nothing. You have truth. And you have me. Emily laughed bitterly. Truth doesn't matter. I tried truth. It got buried. Then we dig it up. She looked at him sharply. What do you mean? Vorian sat across from her, those silver eyes intense. Tell me everything about Mark. His business. His connections. His weaknesses. Emily hesitated. She'd never told anyone the full story. Mark had made sure she was too afraid to talk. But something about Vorian's presence, his stillness, his patience, made the words start flowing. Mark runs a trucking company. At least, that's what everyone thinks. She took a shaky breath. But the trucks don't just carry legitimate cargo. I started noticing things about 2 years ago. Strange deliveries at night. People I didn't recognize coming to the house. Mark getting angry when I asked questions. What was he moving? At first I thought drugs. But then one night I heard something in one of the trucks parked behind our house. Scratching. Crying. Emily's voice dropped. There were people inside. Women. Girls. Some of them weren't even 18-inch. Vorian's expression went cold. Trafficking. I try to help them. I called 911 from a neighbor's phone because Mark had taken mine. When the police came, Mark's uncle showed up. He made the report disappear. Told me I was confused, stressed, imagining things. Emily's hands clenched into fists. The next day, Mark locked me in our bedroom for 3 days. No phone. No food. Just water. He said if I ever tried something like that again, I wouldn't live long enough to regret it. How many people does he traffic? I don't know. Dozens? More? He has routes up and down the East Coast. Partners in different states. His uncle covers for him. Other cops too, probably. Anyone who looks too close gets paid off or threatened. Vorian stood, pacing like a caged predator. This changes things.
How?
Because Mark is not just abusive. He is a criminal running a trafficking ring. That makes him vulnerable in ways he does not realize. He's not vulnerable. He's untouchable. That's the whole problem. Vorian stopped pacing and looked directly at her. Emily, I have toppled kingdoms. I have brought down men far more powerful than Mark Reeves. I can give you protection while you fight back, but you must choose to fight. I cannot do it for you. Why not? You're stronger than anyone. You could just kill him. Vorian finished. I could. Easily. But that would make you a victim forever. Someone who needed rescuing. Someone who ran and hid while a monster solved her problems. His voice softened.
You deserve better than that.
You deserve to reclaim your own life. Emily stood, her legs shaky but her voice firm. What do I have to do? Expose him. His operation. His uncle's corruption. Bring everything into the light where even his connections cannot hide it. They'll never believe me. They'll never listen. They will. Vorian's smile was predatory. Because I will make them. Emily looked at this vampire king standing in his abandoned lodge, offering her not rescue but partnership. He could have done everything himself. Could have made her disappear, made Mark disappear, solved it all with supernatural power. Instead, he was asking her to be brave. Okay, Emily said. Tell me how. Vorian's expression shifted into something that might have been pride. We go to the courthouse. You file a complete statement. Everything you know. Every detail. And while you do that, I will ensure the right people hear it. When? Tomorrow. At dawn. Why dawn? Vorian's smile turned grim. Because I am strongest at night. And if Mark tries to stop you, he will discover what happens when someone threatens what I protect. The courthouse steps seemed impossibly tall in the morning light. Emily stood at the bottom, staring up at the granite columns and heavy wooden doors. Her statement, 17 pages documenting 2 years of abuse and trafficking, was clutched in her shaking hands. I can't do this, she whispered. Vorian stood beside her, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. The dawn light made him uncomfortable, she'd learned. Not deadly, that was myth, but painful, like standing too close to fire. You can, he said simply. What if they don't believe me? What if his uncle? His uncle will not interfere. The certainty in Vorian's voice should have been comforting. Instead, it reminded Emily of the hunter on the mountain road, of silver eyes glowing in darkness, of power that existed beyond human understanding. What are you going to do? What is necessary? Vorian looked toward the police station across the street.
Go.
I will be close. Emily forced her feet to move. One step, another. By the time she reached the courthouse doors, her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. Inside, the building smelled like old paper and floor polish. A receptionist looked up from her desk, bored and tired. I need to file a statement, Emily said. Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. About trafficking and police corruption. The receptionist's boredom vanished. You'll need to speak with Detective Morrison. Third floor. Detective Morrison was a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much. She read Emily's statement without interruption, her expression growing darker with each page. These are serious allegations, Morrison said finally. You're accusing a police officer of covering up human trafficking. You understand what that means. Yes. Mark Reeves will deny everything. His uncle will defend him. You'll be painted as a bitter ex-girlfriend making things up. I know. Morrison leaned back in her chair. Why now? Why not come forward before? Because before, I didn't have anyone protecting me. Now I do.
Who?
Emily hesitated. Someone who helped me get away. Morrison's eyes narrowed. The man from the motel? The kidnapping report. I wasn't kidnapped. Mark lied. I know. At Emily's surprised look, Morrison continued. I pulled a case file. Davies and Chen both noted inconsistencies in Mark's story. But with Officer Reeves backing his nephew, she shrugged. My hands were tied. And now? Now you've given me probable cause, Morrison stood. Wait here. I need to make some calls. Across the street, Vorian walked into the police station. The building was busy, officers moving between desks, phones ringing, the low hum of law enforcement machinery. Vorian moved through it like a shadow, drawing eyes but no challenges. His sunglasses hid the silver glow, but not the predatory grace. He found Officer Reeves in a back office, feet on his desk, laughing into his phone. Don't worry, the girl's got nothing. My nephew's lawyer will tear her apart. Reeves looked up, saw Vorian standing in his doorway. The smile died on his face. I'll call you back, he hung up slowly. Can I help you? Vorian closed the door behind him and removed his sunglasses. You will tell the truth about your nephew's crimes, Vorian said quietly. You will confess to destroying evidence and protecting a trafficking operation. You will do this now. Reeves laughed, nervous, uncertain. You're out of your mind. Get out before I arrest you for trespassing. Vorian stepped closer. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Look at me. Reeves tried to look away.
Couldn't.
His eyes locked onto Vorian's silver gaze, and something primal in his brain screamed danger. Tell me about the trucks, Vorian said, his voice layered with something ancient and commanding. Tell me about the women. Tell me everything. Reeves' mouth opened. He tried to stop himself, tried to resist, but the words poured out like water from a broken dam. Names. Dates. Routes. Payoffs. Every detail of Mark's operation spilled into the open. Vorian didn't touch him, didn't threaten him. He simply stood there, silver eyes burning, while Reeves confessed to 2 years of corruption. When it was done, Reeves slumped in his chair, sweating and pale. You will repeat this to Detective Morrison, Vorian said. And you will tell the truth at trial. Do you understand? Yes, Reeves whispered. Vorian left him there and moved deeper into the station. 3 more officers had taken payoffs from Mark. Vorian found them one by one, pulled the truth from them with nothing but his voice and his eyes. By the time he finished, 5 officers were sitting in interrogation rooms, confessing everything to a stunned Internal Affairs division. Emily was still in Morrison's office when chaos erupted downstairs.
Shouting.
Running footsteps. Radio chatter. Morrison's phone rang. She answered, listened, then slowly hung up. Officer Reeves just confessed, she said, her voice stunned. To everything. Destroying evidence, taking bribes, protecting traffickers. For other officers are corroborating, she looked at Emily. What the hell is happening? Emily knew. She didn't know how, but she knew. The truth, she said simply. The truth is happening. Morrison's computer dinged. An alert. Then another. State police are issuing a warrant for Mark Reeves, Morrison said, reading her screen. They're moving on him now. His trucking company, his warehouses. Her eyes widened. They found 3 women locked in a truck at one of his properties. Emily's breath caught. Are they alive?
Yes.
Scared, but alive, Morrison looked at her with something like awe. You did this. You saved them. Emily shook her head. We did this. Through the window, she could see Vorian standing across the street in the shadow of a building, watching the courthouse. Even from this distance, she could feel his presence, steady, protective, unwavering. Morrison followed her gaze. Your friend? Yes. He's dangerous, isn't he? Emily smiled faintly. Only to people who deserve it. The sunrise was different in the mountains. Softer somehow, as though the light had to work harder to reach through the ancient trees and granite peaks. Emily stood on the cliff edge behind the lodge, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, watching pink and gold spread across the sky. 7 days since the diner. 7 days since her life had split into before and after. Her phone, a new one, not the one Mark had controlled, sat silent in her pocket.
No threatening texts.
No angry calls. Mark was in federal custody, held without bail while prosecutors built their case. His uncle and 4 other officers had been arrested. The FBI had seized his trucking company and found evidence of trafficking operations spanning 6 states. 32 victims rescued. 32 lives saved because Emily had finally stopped running. But the victory felt hollow somehow. Those women were free, but they'd carry scars forever. Just like she would. You should not stand so close to the edge. Emily didn't turn. She'd grown used to Vorian appearing without warning, moving without sound. I'm not going to jump, if that's what you're worried about. That is not what worries me. Vorian stepped beside her, careful to stay in the shadow of a large pine. The early morning sun still bothered him. You have been too quiet. I'm thinking. About. Emily pulled the blanket tighter. About what happens next. The trial won't be for months. I have no job, no home, no money. Everything I owned was in Mark's house, and it's all evidence now. You will rebuild. With what? I'm 26 years old, and I have nothing. You have your life, Vorian said quietly. That is not nothing. Emily finally turned to look at him. He wore his usual dark coat, his silver eyes hidden behind sunglasses, even though they stood in shadow. In the week she'd known him, she'd learned so little about who he really was. Where he came from. What he'd lost. He guarded his past like a fortress. Morrison called yesterday, Emily said. She told me they found records going back 3 years. Hundreds of victims. Maybe thousands, her voice cracked. I knew for 2 years and I did nothing. You tried. You were silenced. I should have tried harder. I should have. Survived. Vorian interrupted firmly. You should have survived. And you did. Every victim they rescued is alive because you survived long enough to speak. Tears burned Emily's eyes. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. Vorian turned toward the sunrise, the light painting his pale face in shades of amber. I have lived 300 years. I have saved thousands. I have killed thousands. And every night when darkness falls, I wonder if it was enough. If I did enough. If I was enough, he looked at her. The answer is always no. But we continue anyway. Emily wiped her face. What will you do now? The hunters said there would be more coming for you. There will always be more. But they cannot find what they cannot track. A faint smile crossed his face. I am very good at disappearing. Something cold settled in Emily's chest. You're leaving. You are safe now. Mark cannot hurt you. His operation is destroyed. You have given your statement. The rest is for human justice to decide. So that's it? You just vanish. It is what I do. Emily wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he couldn't just leave after everything they'd been through together. But what right did she have? He'd given her back her life. He owed her nothing more. Will I see you again? The question came out smaller than she intended. Vorian was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. That's not an answer. It is the only honest one I have. He stepped closer, and Emily saw her reflection in his sunglasses, small and tired, and somehow still standing. You do not need me anymore, Emily. You reclaimed your life.
Not me.
I only protected your choice to fight. You did more than that. Perhaps. But now you must walk forward without me. Vorian pulled something from his pocket, a business card. Detective Morrison wants you to speak with other trafficking survivors, to help them find the courage to testify. She believes your story could change things. Emily took the card with shaking fingers. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. You are, Vorian's voice held absolute certainty. You are stronger than you know, stronger than Mark ever let you believe. You will help those women because you understand their fear. And you will heal because you have already taken the hardest step, choosing to live. The sun crept higher, spilling golden light across the cliff. Vorian stepped back into deeper shadow. Thank you, Emily whispered, for giving me back my life. No, Vorian's form seemed to shimmer, becoming less solid, as though he was fading into the morning mist. You reclaimed it. I only protected your choice. Emily blinked, and he was gone. Completely. As though he'd never been there at all. She stood alone on the cliff, watching the sun rise over mountains that had existed long before her pain and would exist long after her healing. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. The morning air was cold but clean, filling her lungs with something that felt almost like hope. Her phone buzzed. A text from Morrison. When you're ready to talk, we're here.
No rush. Take your time.
Emily pocketed the phone and turned back toward the lodge. She had a lot of work to do. Testimony to prepare. A life to rebuild. Scars to heal. But for the first time in 3 years, those scars were hers to heal. Her choices to make. Her life to live. Far away, on a distant ridge visible only to those who knew where to look, a figure in black stood watching. Making sure. Protecting from afar. Then, like smoke on the wind, he was gone.